Did you really?
That weekend, yeah.
4,000.
4,000. So anyway, you know, lesson number one, if you've got a story with that kind of impact, it is just, you have to find some way to tell the story one time, one place, or
Right.
you'll have a train wreck on your hands.
Exactly.
And we were able to do that. I think another lesson, you inferred this earlier, but my boss, Charles Brown, but the whole top management of AT&T and the board of directors, what we were able to do was really a credit to the public relations department, not to me personally, but to the PR department, that we presented a plan to announce that thing to the whole top management, all the CEOs of the Bell companies, to our own board of directors. And, you know, thinking back on it later, I thought to myself, that's that's amazing that no one said, you're not going to bring in an agency to do this, or tell me that again, I don't like that, you know, and blah, blah, blah. They all just said, great plan, you know. And that was, so, and the third thing I think, Larry, is, well, I did the plan in 2 days because of the danger of leaks. At least I had an opportunity to think it through. I mean, it didn't come flying in over the transom,
Right.
as it so often happens to chief public relations officers, that they don't know till the last minute. I was in on it from the first minute. And that made a huge difference. And we were also able to mobilize not only the chairman of the board as the principal spokesperson, but we were fortunate that we had a president, Bill Ellinghaus, you know him well,
Right.
and two vice chairs who were, you know, very polished with the news media.
Right.
I mean, they were good at it. And so I was able to give them the talking points. And so in fielding those, and by the way, we all lived in our office building through that whole weekend. So it was impressive to a reporter who calls in, and we say, do you want to talk to Charlie Brown? Hang on a minute.
There he is.
Press the button.
Right.
He's on the line. And Bill Ellinghaus and whatnot. So we had 4 really good authoritative spokesmen, and of course all the rest of us ink-stained wretches in the PR department who could, you know, who could handle whatever came in. And we did augment our media relations group by handpicking people elsewhere, and who might have been on jobs elsewhere in the public relations
Sure.
department, but had plenty of experience. So we were able to get through that weekend. The last thing, in anticipating this train wreck or this media frenzy, I wrote an ad, a full-page ad, to run in the morning papers the next day, all the metropolitan papers in the United States. And I did that for fear that the story would not come out as clearly and as accurately as it did. And we hired different financial print shops in New York City and gave them each a paragraph or 2 of the ad, so no one ever saw
Put it together.
the whole ad. And then we had individuals get on airplanes and fly out to the markets and deliver the ad to the newspapers. Well, it turned out the reporters got it right and got it straight, and that really was superfluous. The other thing that I think we did, maybe not everybody who will ever listen to this will have the same thing, but in a company that has a lot of different divisions and business units and whatnot, we called the presidents of the Bell companies into New York, or New Jersey actually, and I took them through the plan, and Howard Treenham took them through the steps in the courthouse, and I asked each of them, as soon as we had made the announcement, to have their own press conference in their headquarters city, because they had the employees. They were theirs, not ours.
Sure.
They had the customers. They were not AT&T headquarters customers. They were the Bell companies. And with but one exception, not one of those CEOs freelanced or made a boo-boo. I sent them a packet by courier the night before with everything they needed for a press conference, and they had the conferences I think noon the next day. And that helped a lot because they were talking to their customers, they were talking to their employees,
Right.
and they were talking to the news media that covered their company. And I think that sometimes we forget to do, I don't know whether it was me who thought of that or somebody else, but sometimes we forget thinking, well, the whole show is the chairman of the board.
Yeah.
Well, it's not.
It isn't.
If you're a big company with a lot of people scattered all over the place, employees and customers, it's important to have the person they look to as the head guy, not the chairman of the board of the holding company.
Let me jump quickly to another subject, values, the subject of integrity, responsibility, truth-telling, and give me your view of what is needed in those areas. And I know here at the Page Center, which is why we're gathering at Penn State at this time, the board of the Page Center, trying to figure out how best to carry out our responsibility and to elevate the Page Center to an even higher standard. But give me off-the-cuff thoughts about values, responsibility, integrity. What do you think about when you focus on those issues?
Well, I'm going to come at that question from a couple of different angles. One is that public relations as a skill set, if you want to call it that, has grown enormously, and it has morphed into communications, communicator. And I think my idea of integrity and values and whatnot has to do with the counseling function, not as the resident saint, for goodness sakes,
No.
but to be in that policy-making loop that includes the communication of policy, but also the making of policy. So I think, for my mind, the big role that the communication school at Penn State is going to play in the locating the Page Center here is that I think a prestigious academic institution that gives you great leverage and gives you the right to talk about integrity and ethics. And so I think that the center here at Penn State, the Page Center, can be enormously influential. Now, as to what is integrity and how do you do it in the business world and that sort of thing, which I hope will be the output. The how-tos will come out of the Page Center as well. But to my mind, it's pretty easy to think in terms of some old-fashioned horse sense. Companies that do right do better. I mean, that's been
right.
documented, through almost a century now, and it's not, when I say do better, meaning their bottom line.
Right.
They make money for the share owners, and they do it consistently, which is really important, and not the peaks and valleys. So that's kind of a glib way to say it, that the ones who who do right do better, but it's documented. The other thing is there's some simple rules, and they pretty much come out of the Page principles, but they're, you know, other people have said them in other language and using other words. The new hot button, as you know, is transparency. Well, that had old-fashioned meanings, but it meant, you know, all business in a democratic society, blah, 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 you know. Your customers, your share owners, your constituencies have a right to get an explanation of what you're doing when they want an explanation. So, you know, what's so magic about that? And yet we have gotten away from it too much, I think, in modern times, where it's almost as though slickness of communications will pull you through, you know, whether it's marketing or whether it's in PR. And we know it doesn't. It doesn't. You may get away with it for a little while, but you know, sooner or later you're going to slip on a banana peel if, you know, if it's not real. So it's telling the truth. It's being upfront with your employees, with your share owners. Employees, by the way, you know this from your J&J days, and I know this. The first people who know that the emperor has no clothes are the employees. And once they decide that,
it's downhill.
It's downhill, because they will let that be known to everybody. So if you're a company that employs a lot of people, it's very important, the integrity thing, the transparency thing, the upfront thing. Really, I think you build it off of your internal communications.
But the person in charge of public relations for the company, the person who has access to the chairman, they're in a wonderful position to be the reminder, to be the keeper of the principles that the company is striving for, right?
Yes, they are. Absolutely. And I think a friend of mine by the name of Larry Foster used to talk about that a lot, that the chief public relations officer, by whatever title, is the only one in the top echelon of senior management whose job it is to think like the CEO would think. The others, whether it's chief financial officer or chief marketing officer or whatever, are advocates, as they should be, of what they're doing. And you and I know that in some of the discussions, we called it the office of the chairman, but the executive committee, whatever. The problem in making bad decisions and the opportunity to make good decisions is not a matter that you got a bunch of crooks in the room who all want to do something bad. It isn't that. That you're trying to thrash out a strategy or a decision or a way to present a decision. And so it's not people sitting around a table trying to figure out how they can get by with something. It's people advocating different solutions to the same problem from their point of view. And the one person in the room who can be useful to the CEO is the chief public relations officer, because he or she is not invested in any of those advocacy positions at all. And also, as you know, and I certainly know, oftentimes the chairman needs someone in that room who will speak the unspeakable, you know, and say, you can't do that. You can't do that. Okay, it's going to cost us some money to not do that, or whatever the implications are. And the chairman, in many cases, he knew that all along. He just wanted somebody in the room to say, to say it, and then he can say, well, I agree.